What is up, everybody? My name is Tommy Shelby. Here's Ryan Robinson.
What up, what up, what up?
Welcome to the Save Continue podcast. Shanae could not make it, but she will be here for the next episode.
So let's chill to the next episode.
That's right.
Yeah.
Dr. Dre.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we haven't really discussed what we want to talk about this episode, Ryan.
No,
but
we didn't.
I have a good idea though.
Okay.
But first, let's get into what have you been playing?
Okay, so before we got on mic, I was talking to you about how much time I've been spending with SpiderMan.
Yeah.
Insomniac's hit PlayStation exclusive SpiderMan. And it took me a little bit to really dig into that game, but I like that game a heck of a whole lot.
Yeah, I really loved that game when I first played it.
Have you cooled on it since?
No, I still like it quite a bit. It's extremely fun. I do think the game has a couple of issues, but
Like what?
I like it a lot. I just think that probably my only problem with that game is that the side quests get very repetitive after a while. You're doing a lot of the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really am not. I think one thing I'm really not into is Harry Osborn's research station thing.
Right.
I'm just not into it. It just seems so weird, and because I just did one last night where he wanted me to help him with maintaining the cellular network infrastructure.
Oh yeah,
And,
I remember all those.
Yeah, and it just felt so strange to me, and not in a particularly fun way.
There's some I really thought were pretty inventive,
Yeah.
but like have you done any of the Taskmaster
So
stuff
I
yet?
was just gonna mention Taskmaster. So first of all,
Yeah.
this rendition, this representation of Taskmaster is very cool.
Yeah.
I think he's really neat. And I fought him and lost,
Sure.
but it's really neat. He's the way he's kind of he's like, I'm just watching you and learning your moves, and it's a really
Studied all your moves.
Yeah, Sonya. It's a really cool side quest, and there are so many side quests. You have Taskmaster, you got Black Cat, what else? You got Harry's stuff.
I still need to play. So I platinumed the main game. Still need to play City That Never Sleeps.
Yeah.
I know that goes a bit deeper into Black Cat, at least one of the episodes.
Yeah.
So I'll get back to that eventually.
Yeah, so I'm looking. So I'm basically, the whole thing with Black Cat, for you guys who haven't played it, is she's leaving little.
She leaves.
She leaves. She's leaving these little kitty cats around for Spider-Man to find, and presumably in places that she's burglarizing.
Yeah, burgled.
Yeah, places that she's burgling, and I'm not sure where that's going yet. I'm wondering if at some point it's gonna go to a confrontation with Black Cat. I don't know, but it's fun though, because I all that stuff that's go here, look at that, move on. I like that for some reason.
Yeah.
The Black Cat stuff, and then there's the landmarks. So take pictures of different landmarks. So it's all been really fun, and of course also I'm playing still lots of Mortal Kombat. Well, I shouldn't say still, because I took a break for a while to focus on Tekken, which I'm still very much into. But I've been playing a lot of Mortal Kombat. Looking forward to 3 days from now, Tom, Street Fighter V Champion Edition.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was so soon.
Yeah, I'm really excited. If you already own the base game, you can just already upgrade now. And
I'll have to take a look because I've got most of that content already.
Yeah. Capcom, I don't know, because I tried to find it elsewhere, and it looks like they only put it on Steam for some reason. But they put out a chart of all the stuff that's coming in the Champion Edition.
Yeah. I'll take a look at that.
Yeah. I couldn't find it on their website for some reason. But yeah, I'm really excited because I plan on putting a lot of time into that. I already I had played a lot of Bison before when I was playing that game heavily.
You were a good Bison, that's for sure.
And I'm gonna continue with my Bison, but I'm also thinking about labbing some Blanca. So we'll see how that goes. But
so you can annoy everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a cool guy. So,
Sure.
What about you, Tom? What have you been up to?
I guess 2 games I want to talk about real quick.
Okay.
One of them, you, me, and our friend Sarah, along with our friends Jimmy and Eric, we streamed some Silent Hill 2.
Yeah.
And it was just a lot of fun
Fantastic
to get
game.
to see you guys see and play more of that game.
Yeah.
And we'll get back to that. If you guys want to catch up on that, we're doing it on Magical Girls Gaming on Twitch.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I haven't touched that game since high school.
And the plan is we're going to continue on with it this next week. So, so that's a lot of fun. Ryan, I discovered a 1993 beat 'em up that I'd never played. That's fucking awesome.
Okay, hit me.
It's called Night Slashers. You ever play this game?
Describe it to me.
It's from Data East.
Okay.
3 playable characters. You can play up to 3 players at the same time.
Okay.
It's like a horror beat 'em up.
Oh, that sounds
so like you're fighting these zombies. The first level, and you're fighting these zombies. And the animation for 1993 from Data East of all people, like it's so good.
Early 90s beat 'em ups were legit.
But like, so like one of the first guys you're playing as is like this big buff blonde dude, right? But he's got like Jack's arms for some reason.
This game's called Night Slashers?
Night Slashers, yeah. He's got Jack's arms, right? Mm-hmm. So you like do your punch, right? Like in any other beat 'em up. But he ends the combo by
I know this game.
Yeah, he ends the combo by shooting the enemy in the head.
Yeah.
And like blood comes out and intestines come out. And like it's so gory for that generation.
Where are you playing this?
It's on Switch.
All right. So we're gonna play this. We're gonna play that after the show, and we're gonna wait for Sinead to get here.
Only a couple of dollars.
Yeah.
And like they got a lot of Data East games under like the Johnny Turbo's Arcade banner on Switch. Most of them are games you probably wouldn't want to play, but this game is awesome.
Yeah.
You're fighting Frankensteins and Draculas and all sorts of shit.
I love that.
It's super fun. Super fun.
So lately, like every once in a while, I go on a hunt for, like I would remember an arcade game from when I was a kid, and I'd be like, what was that game called? I would remember something about it, and then that would be my internet search.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if I told you about my search for what was actually a Chase HQ game, but it took me forever to find it.
Yeah.
And so now I'm searching for another game. It's like some fighter jet dogfighting game. It's not Afterburner. It's polygonal, and it was in the arcade. And I don't know, but
you move in a 3D space or just forward?
Shit, I can't remember.
Okay.
So those early 90s brawlers, man, like those games I remember the thing about those games is, and I guess like it lends it to the art style, is like they always look exactly how you remember. They always move how you remember. Yeah. And it's just cool.
It surprised me not only because of when it was that I hadn't played it and the content that's there, but it also surprised me that it was Data East.
Yeah.
Because like other than Bad Dudes, and even Bad Dudes is just like, it's an okay game, you know? But yeah, a lot of fun. And you know what? I'll talk about this real quick too. So I finally got around to downloading the first 3 Doom games.
Rad.
The most recent ports from Bethesda. The first 2 done by Nerve, as they typically have been done. And the third done by, what the fuck is the name of that studio? Well, I don't remember the name of the studio. It's the same guys that ported over Wolfenstein and 2016's Doom. They've been doing a lot of Switch ports. Anyway, they're available on all modern platforms, right? The games first come out, and actually this will lead into my topic quite well. The games first come out, and everyone's shitting all over them, rightfully so, because of DRM. Because of the requirement to sign into the Doom Slayers Club through like Bethesda Net or whatever it is. Like you couldn't play them offline initially on Switch. You know, the ports, the aspect ratio wasn't correct. The sound wasn't correct. The lighting wasn't correct.
They're sounding like bad ports so far, Tom.
Yeah, all of that's been fixed.
Okay,
all of it.
Good.
And as a matter of fact, this is the first time that you can actually play certain add-ons.
I saw you talking about Sigil.
Yeah, off of PC. So yeah, I played through Sigil. Sigil's extremely hard. Like I don't know how you could play that without God mode. It's very hard, but fun. Anyways, these games are a lot better now. What I kind of want to talk about, and like I don't think these games really fit into it because I'm sure they're selling well because it's fucking Doom.
Yeah.
But what I want to talk about is games that kind of drew the short straw that are kind of getting, shortchanged in a way. So what brought this on is last week you and I were talking about off the show. We were talking about I'd been playing Puzzle Quest, the new Puzzle Quest remaster of Puzzle Quest, right?
Yeah.
And I said to you that, Puzzle Quest was a huge fucking game when it came out. It was a big deal on DS. It was a big deal on Xbox 360 Arcade, But like that was fucking a decade ago. And now anytime you see a match 3 game, you think of fucking Candy Crush or Bejeweled or more modern Puzzle Quest. And I think that probably hurts the sales of this really good RPG.
Absolutely.
So I kind of want to talk about instances like that where a game is good but will probably suffer bad sales for one reason or another.
Yeah. So I think part of that conversation was we mentioned I brought up Apple Arcade in that conversation because I think that there are a lot of games in Apple Arcade that if that platform didn't exist or something similar, I just don't think those games would have had a chance.
Sure.
Because I look at games like Grindstone.
Yeah.
Like I just don't think that game would have had a chance because like it looks and plays like a free to play game.
Yeah, and the game, Grindstone's an interesting case because I do think that because it's developed by Cappy, that there are certain people, myself, I would have bought it because of that, right?
Yeah.
There's a small Cappy audience that would buy it because it's made by them.
Right.
But I don't think it would be anywhere near as successful as it is, like you're saying. But yeah, it's just, Puzzle Quest Remaster is a fine remaster of a great game.
Yeah, but like
But times have changed so much in the past decade.
Like the landscape now is that like a puzzle game is a free to play game. It's
right.
Gonna be riddled with microtransactions and they're filling up meters and all that.
Yeah, and there are more modern Puzzle Quests that are riddled with microtransactions, but this one is not one of those, Yeah, there's a lot of these games that come to mind. Not most of the Wii U ports, but a lot of the Wii U ports to Switch. New Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe. I think that a lot of people look at that and they think about all the fucking new Super Mario Brothers games that have come out.
Yeah.
And how they're all kind of the same thing and recycled assets and all. And this is just a port from a last gen game.
Yeah.
And like, it's a solid platformer. It's kind of ugly.
Yeah.
But like, and I know that game is sold well, but I think that it should probably sell better. Same thing with Tropical Freeze. That game re-released on Switch at a full $60. And like, that's not Retro's doing. That's Nintendo's doing,
sure.
And that's, in my opinion, one of the best 2D platformers ever made.
Yeah. But like at the same time, I think that I struggle sometimes to divorce myself from the thinking of value versus cost.
Right. But most people don't.
Yeah.
And
it's hard to because like Tropical Freeze is a fantastic game, but like it's also a last gen game.
Yeah.
And I don't know, something always like feels weird about paying full price for a last gen game and like especially like if it's like.
But we don't think the same thing about buying an album that was recorded 20 years ago.
Dude, listen.
We don't think the same thing about buying a Blu-ray for a movie that released.
I understand what you're saying.
30 years ago.
I bought a Ghostface Killer album for $30 and the album came out 15 years ago.
Exactly.
I get it. But at the same time, it's like.
So why should this be held to a different standard?
I think it's just because like when you have a conversation about other things like that,
you're
talking about like collectability versus like, which I don't think is like an issue where that's concerned. Because I think that the price of those things is driven by how badly people want them or how sought after they are.
Yeah.
Whereas like when there are I don't know how many keys are generated. I'm just gonna throw out a huge number. When there are a bajillion keys that are generated. Yeah. Like it's not a collectability issue at that point.
It's still a finite thing though.
Sure.
Right? Those won't be up forever.
Yeah.
Physical copies will be gone
Yeah.
We've already seen 3D store or 3D digital storefronts close down.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I guess I don't really know about I don't really know about like how well because one comparison that I was drawing a lot when I was playing SpiderMan was I kept thinking about Batman, for like a few different reasons. Like I feel like anyway. So like that drew me back to when the Middle Earth game, the first Middle Earth game came out,
Shadow of Mordor,
and I think that game did decent.
Yeah, it did quite well.
And I have to wonder like, but like you remember how many comparisons it got to the Arkham games?
Only in the combat, but
Yeah.
yes.
And like, I always wondered like how that game, like because I don't know how much of because I know those are both WB games, I'm pretty sure.
I believe so.
And I always wondered like how would like if Batman came out after that, and would Batman have sold any differently because they would be like, well, Batman's combat is aping off of Middle Earth.
Yeah, I don't know. But Batman came out many years before that.
Yeah. Yeah, but like it's just a hypothetical thing. But like I also think that like then there's also things that like I think that when we're talking about like games that come out first, or like when you have like a big release that like, and there's another game that's like kind of similar to it, or there are other games that are like very similar to it, and like the landscape gets kind of muddled, then I think that the one thing that you have to rely on is name recognition.
Yeah.
Which sucks because like then we go back to the Puzzle Fighter thing, where
Puzzle Quest.
No, the Puzzle Fighter that came out like a year or so ago.
Okay. Oh, sure. The mobile one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like naturally, like people are gonna like people who have fond memories of Puzzle Fighter and who played lots of Puzzle Fighter, like, oh hell yeah, Puzzle Fighter in my goddamn phone is gonna be great, and then it's just not that, So like the inverse can also be true, but I don't know, because I also think that like I have a hard time with like when I was talking about how like I liked Arkham Origins more than I think other people did.
Yeah.
I think that in a lot of ways, I have a hard time like gauging the quality of things, because I think that like I guess my mind like I don't know what I'm looking for in those.
Well, things. I think Origins is actually a good example of what we're talking about. Not that Origins didn't sell well, but at the time it was not as well respected. Some would say even now not as well respected because it wasn't made by Rocksteady, which is, it sucks. It's still a good game.
Sure.
At least from what I've heard, it's still a good game. But even now, when people bring up Arkham, when the Arkham collection comes out, there's no Origins in there, right? Like, yeah.
And I also wonder like how Origins would have done if it was the first of those games.
Oh, right. It would have been awesome. People would have loved it.
Yeah. But then, of course, revisionist history has changed how people are talking about that game anyway, so I guess the point is moot. But
I think Drill Dozer. I've been playing Drill Dozer, so I borrowed today's Wii U, and all I've played on there is Virtual Console stuff. So Drill Dozer is an awesome Game Boy Advance action platformer that actually reminds me a lot of Downwell. They play very, very differently, but it reminds me of Downwell in that one mechanic does many, many things.
Yeah.
And it's from Game Freak, right? Pokemon guys. But it didn't sell very well. We'll probably never see a sequel. And I think the biggest reason for that is because it's a Game Boy Advance game that came out after the DS was already out.
Yeah.
It's
funny that that's a Game Freak game that you mentioned, because I also remember thinking about Tembo the Badass Elephant.
Yeah.
And like
that game looks lame. I've never played it, but it looks real bad. I know you liked it.
I just think of like if there were people who were like heard like, hey, Game Freak's making a new game, and then it turns out that it's not Pokemon, then like how many people?
I don't think it's that though, because like Harmonite sold very well.
Yeah.
Did it sell as well as Pokemon? No, of course not.
Sure.
But I don't think they expected it to either.
But then and then I also think about games like I think about Lords of the Fallen, which I think for all intents and purposes is a pretty decent game.
Oh, the fake Dark Souls, right?
That's what they call it.
Yeah.
I've actually never seen that in print, but
well, that's why, right? That's why that game probably didn't do so well.
Because that's what people called it.
Yeah.
Like, well, and it's like, you know, because I think, especially where video games are concerned, there's a line, right? Like, there's a line between imitation and duplication,
right?
And it's like, and it's a very like where video games are concerned, that line is very thin.
But see, that same company goes on to make the Surge, and I think just because it looks different visually, like. Yeah. Lords of the Fallen looks different visually, sure. But like this looks
still
much
like medieval.
Right, this looks
like,
way different visually.
Yeah,
that did even better.
Yeah,
right?
And I think that if that dev had done, the Surge first, then it wouldn't have even been a conversation, you know. But people still would have. Ultimately, people still called it sci-fi Dark Souls, which is fine. But
you should chug Surge colas in that, like. Norman Reedus with the monsters in Death Stranding. Surge.
Like
that should be your health.
Surge?
Yeah. Instead of popping like blood vials, you're popping Surge sodas.
I think it would be funny if like if you drank a Surge,
yeah, then
like you would hear like the Surge yell from the commercial, and then a bunch of BTs would rush you.
Sure.
But like I think that like because I don't know how like what that game, because I don't know if that game's concept started before Dark Souls.
Yeah,
maybe it didn't. But I think that I think Dark Souls definitely played a part in like shaping like this is how this is a kind of action RPG that can be made and that people enjoy. And
I mean, who published that? 505?
I think so. It's either them or City Interactive. Who also I think is behind. Fuck, I can't remember. It's some other new Souls-like game but it's like guns instead of swords, and man, I can't remember what it's called. I played a little bit of it, but
I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, it's gonna bother me now, but that's the thing too, right? It's just like all these games exist in the shadow of like a larger, more recognizable game, kind of like how when like in a post GTA 3 world, every open world crime game was a GTA clone.
Sure. But, like, I don't think that they all do. Like, I don't think, like, New Super Mario Brothers certainly doesn't.
Yeah.
It's a fucking Mario game, you know?
Well, like,
if anything, it exists in its own shadow, right? Well, but, or even Drill Dozer, like, I don't think anybody gave a shit that it was Game Freak at the time. I think at that time, not a lot of people were really paying attention to developers.
Yeah.
You know, people just associated Pokemon with Nintendo.
Sure.
But like, yeah, I mean, I do see what you're saying. I especially with like Lords of the Fallen and all that.
Well, it's just because like I think that like when you talk about games getting the short straw, like it's just like if you see, because I think it's really hard not to be derivative in some way.
Yeah.
Given how much inspiration there is out there, it's really hard not to draw inspiration from something.
Sure. I think the same could be said for Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Like, don't get me wrong, it's very clear why that game didn't sell. You know, there is a lot of reasons why that game didn't sell, but underneath it is a very good game.
Yeah, well, think about like, if 2 and 3 didn't exist.
Yeah.
Then, like, what would people think of that game?
Sure. I mean, it's the lack of X-Men. It's the fact that it looks ugly as shit. You know, but like it's the really bad story mode, all that. The demo that came out was really bad, but like actually playing the game, like that's a good game. More people should play that game. It's sad that game didn't have an Evo, you know?
Well, I think that goes along with like, I think fighting games especially, where I think it's fair to to look at a game and be like, that doesn't look so good, I don't think I'm gonna play it, because time is finite, right? But like at the same time, like you also can miss out on some really good things that way.
And you see things like that really like butt heads with that, right? And like Under Night In-Birth, I don't think anybody looks at Under Night and says, man, that's a beautiful game.
Sure.
You know, like that's a very budget fighting game.
Yeah.
Like that is up until last year what people would define as a poverty game.
Yeah.
You know,
but
it's very successful now.
The hard thing about that genre specifically is that like they're so like those like fighting games live and die by their mechanics, And I think that like
I feel like they live and die by their looks more than anything now.
Maybe, and I think that's probably true because like that goes for the prevalence of like fatal blows and
right
and fury and like rage drives and things like that.
Yeah,
just because like you got to make the game look flashy,
yeah.
right? But like,
I mean, fucking DBZ, right? Like, not to talk shit about DBZ, but like, I wouldn't say that mechanically that's much deeper than most of these other games.
Well, yeah. In fact, it's
just really cool to look at.
It's like less deep than Guilty Gear.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, you know, you can like people will look at a DBZ fighting game and be like, hell yeah, that looks badass.
Yeah.
Whereas like someone will look at them fighting herds and be like, no, that game looks dumb.
But what's funny is it hasn't been that way with Dragon Ball. Like Budokai had been successful, right? But like not to the level of Fighters, right? Fighter Z, I don't know. Yeah. Not to that level of success because they were arena fighters. Nobody took them seriously. Still to this day, nobody takes them seriously for a good reason. But like
they're not good.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had fun when we played Budokai in high school. I had fun playing it, you know.
We were younger and naive and more naive then.
Yeah, but yeah, there's just as I've been thinking about it throughout the week, there's just so many games I can list off that just they're good games and just no one's buying them. And obviously, these Nintendo games, people are buying them.
Yeah,
you know, for sure, people bought those
that's
games.
Such a weird thing about Nintendo games, though, dude. Is this like? I feel like people would buy even bad Nintendo games.
Oh, they do.
And like,
I mean, Amiibo Festival sold like crazy, you know.
Yeah,
like,
and it's such a weird outlier because people will just buy bad Nintendo games, and whereas you know any other publisher, like that game has to have a really good goddamn advertising campaign.
Well, I mean, we say people will buy bad Nintendo games, but sales show that that's not always true. Star Fox Zero didn't sell worth a shit.
Sure.
Now, obviously, a large part of that is not a lot of people into Wii U.
Yeah.
But I think that the reason that Nintendo can get away with that is because like 90% of the time their games are pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
You know?
Bastards.
Yeah, but like what was the Donkey Konga racing game? Like that didn't sell well.
Yeah.
You know. But
I don't know. I also think that like there are so many because you brought up, you know, like a Mario game versus a newer Mario game, and there's just like the only thing to compare Mario to is just more Mario, whereas like it's like I don't know, battling with your own legacy is like different than like trying to set yourself apart from like a really big name release from like another developer.
Yeah, but I think that's more the case with Sega and the Sonic series than it is with Nintendo and the Mario series. I think like people were just sick of New Super Mario Brothers art style at that point, and the fact that yes, it is a lot of reused assets, it is a lot of reused stage ideas, you know. But it's a good game, and I would say it's the best of those games, you know.
So, what are some other games that you felt kind of got the shaft because it sounds very much like a time and place kind of thing?
What do you mean?
Like, I think that a game comes out at the right time, then it's probably gonna get more attention than if it comes out like after some other stuff has happened before it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. You're definitely right about that. Like I think about Marble Blast Ultra, not Marble Blast Ultra, Marble It Up, right? Which is like a successor to the Marble Blast series and like marble rolling games in general.
Sure.
And like that definitely is a time and place thing because that is a great game. It's probably the best of that genre of games, you know? But like 2019, 2020, people probably aren't so interested in rolling a marble around. Yeah. I'm not so sure why that is. Like I love it, but it's just not, you know, it's not it ain't gonna sell, you know?
Yeah.
And that sucks. I think that's sad. I think there's room for these kinds of games. There's just not the audience for them, apparently.
Well, I think that a lot of it has to do with, I think people are wrestling a lot with, like, we want more complicated games, but at other times we want simpler games. And because, like, I think even myself, like sometimes I want to play Elite Dangerous.
Right.
And other times I just want to play a game where I'm just kicking bubbles or something. You know?
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's hard to like figure out what I want at a given time. Like, because I could spend like 6 months playing a specific kind of game.
Yeah.
And then suddenly like another, something else hits me and I'm not into it.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. You have any examples you can think of?
Honestly, I think that one of the
Sin and Punishment Star Successor.
So I don't know anything about Sin and Punishment except for what you've shown me.
So I think the biggest problem with Star Successor...
Is that a shooter game?
Yeah, it's a rail shooter, right? Okay. I think the biggest problem with it is that the original Sin and Punishment for Nintendo 64 was never published here until it came out on a Virtual Console.
Yeah.
So it was a Japan-only thing, right? So like when the Wii comes out with Star Successor, and they did a good job marketing it. I remember seeing those commercials on cable TV, but like nobody knew what the fuck it was. The people look kind of weird, like Dark Crystal people.
Yeah, I don't know.
Treasure is a name, while for like a very niche audience, Treasure is like a big fucking name. To the mainstream, Treasure doesn't mean shit, so I think that's definitely why that game didn't sell incredibly well. But like, holy shit, is that a good game? Like, that's the kind of game that makes you say, I don't need Star Fox ever again. I don't need, Kid Icarus Uprising ever again.
Yeah.
Give me more of that.
Yeah.
But
I find often it's weird because I've gotten to the point where I've listened to you talk about games that you're into enough that I'll just hear the title of a game and I'll just be like, that sounds like a game Tom likes. Like without knowing anything about the game, I'm like, I bet Tom would like that game.
Yeah.
But like you talk about games often that I have never heard of.
Yeah.
Like I'd never heard of Sin and Punishment, like before you brought it up, And
you don't remember the commercials though?
No. What? Like were they?
It's just a lot of fast cuts of action going on.
Okay. That I probably saw it. Yeah. Oh, you know what? I got one. So, I guess I would be considered a Twisted Metal fan. I am not on board with everything that they have done with that franchise, especially when 989 was developing those games. Ugh. But I've like 1, 2, and Black. I think are fantastic games. But you of course remember Vigilante 8, right?
Yeah.
So I thought Vigilante. I don't know how I wasn't paying attention to sales numbers back then because I was fucking 12. But like Vigilante 8, I thought was like a really cool game that was doing a lot of really cool shit in it.
Yeah.
That Twisted Metal was not doing.
Yeah.
And because I think Twisted Metal wanted to go more into like. They were trying to like a lot of Twisted Metal's wrapped up in like supernatural shit.
Sure.
And different people doing like magical shit with their cars or whatever. But I felt like Vigilante 8 was cooler because it was like more grounded in a lot of different ways. Like you take a bad hit to like the front of your car, then your engine might stall out. You have to restart your car, and and it just like did really cool things. But like at the same time, like it's another one of those things where it's another car combat game, but it's a car combat game that came out after Twisted Metal 2.
Yeah.
And so like people aren't as into it. Now, granted, that game got a sequel,
right,
which is bad. But that first game though,
I'd say worse than that was Cell Damage.
Oh,
because it came out even later. It sold okay because of the cell shading, but like,
well, that was what it had to set it apart,
right? But people that like play that game really speak highly of it, know.
Those people have probably not played another car combat game called WWF Crush Hour, which was a car combat game starring.
It's a good name.
Starring all pro wrestlers. But yeah, like I think that like now, granted, I'm not gonna sit here and say that I think Vigilante 8 would still be a prominent franchise if Twisted Metal never happened, because I really don't think that. But I think that
Twisted Metal is not right at this point.
Yeah,
but that genre is pretty dead.
David Jaffe's best efforts.
Yeah,
that game. Twisted Metal 2012 was a bad game, but I think that like it's another one of those things, right? Like where you have that big because I think Twisted Metal was very much a PlayStation. It's sold a lot of PlayStations, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Twisted Metal's been on anything off of a PlayStation, right?
There's like a Windows version of Twisted Metal 1 out there.
Really? I thought that was a Sony-owned IP. I could be wrong.
There's a Windows version of some Twisted Metal. It's either 1 or 2. I can't remember which.
Yeah.
But then it's so funny because like the inverse is true, right? Because there are games that like they have that initially, but then they like establish their own identity later on. Like, do you remember how Saints Row started out?
Yeah, Saints Row 1 and 2, like, were very much wanting to be the more ghetto GTA clones. Yeah.
But then
urban.
Don't use that. But so what I think Saints Row starting out they try to set themselves apart, like, hey, like make your own character. You know, and then our missions will be because they were trying to because there was a point in time where like GTA was doing the thing where it was trying to be satirical, but sometimes it would veer into like the realm of cartoony a little bit, whereas Saints Row was like trying to like do that, but like lean a little bit more into cartoony than GTA was, but they were still kind of parallel with each other.
Yeah, they were.
But then like later on,
and GTA was just generally better.
Yeah. And then later, and it wasn't until the third game that Saints Row established its own identity and like really set itself apart. Because like there was a point where like I was like, why would I play? Like the only reason I'm playing Saints Row right now is because GTA 4 isn't coming out for another 2 years.
Right.
So like sometimes the inverse can be true, but like it could have very easily like been the case where like we're just gonna stay the course and we're just gonna try to be like the other like semi-realistic open world crime game.
Yeah.
And then Saints Row would have floundered, but like luckily they established their own identity. And I think that's what you have to do when trying to like release a game that draws obvious inspiration from a larger franchise.
Yeah.
But it's like even if you are doing that, it's still hard to get people to pay attention to you.
But what about the games that really don't draw inspiration from other franchises, that really kind of are their own thing, that are still find themselves in the same situation, right? Like I don't know if we talked about this on your episode, the Revisionist History episode, but like the Panzer Dragoon series as a whole has not sold incredibly well. You know, and up until the original Xbox, they kept making them. We're now going to be getting this remaster of the first game.
Cool.
But, you know, what's up with that? Like, and now they're super sought after by collectors and stuff, but.
Which is weird because like Panzer Dragoon came out when shoot 'em ups were still not terribly prevalent in the way that they had been before, but there's still a lot of them.
But even compared to the others, there's nothing like Panzer Dragoon in the way that the mechanics work, you know.
Yeah. You know, and it's so strange because like I think a lot of it had to do with Panzer Dragoon getting its start on a successful platform.
Good call. Yeah, I'm sure you're right. That's a good point.
And you know, there were those of us who were fortunate enough to like get to fortunate enough to know about it so that we could play it.
Yeah.
But like that was the comparison of us versus like however many other millions of people out there. You know, I don't think that I think Sega really screwed that franchise. And like granted, like they've done some really good work since then. But you know, I think that
no, you're absolutely right. It's starting on the Saturn definitely didn't help it.
Yeah.
And I never really considered that. I always think of like Orta because it was on the Xbox.
Right.
Which a lot of people owned an Xbox, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, but like at the same time, but like there were so many when people were buying when people were buying Xboxes, they were looking for different things than when people were buying Saturns.
Yeah.
Because I think that by that time people were looking for first-person shooters and things like that, and they weren't really looking for, that kind of game anymore.
I mean, Crimson Skies still sold.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, though, because Crimson Skies was so. Like when I look back on Crimson Skies, it's such a strange, not strange, but like I feel like it's kind of an anomaly in some ways because like it was a successful shoot 'em up that a lot of people bought, but then at the same time, I look at all these other shooters that come and go.
Yeah.
Like even shooters from like established storied franchises that like people don't really pay that much attention to.
Yeah.
Like another Raiden can come out and like people won't pay attention to it.
Well, another Raiden did come out.
My point
but
exactly.
Like, I think the biggest problem with the Raiden franchise is just price gouging, charging way too much for a game like that.
Yeah.
But
you know, and I think that I don't know, because it would be really cool to see like some kind of resurgence of that, especially now when I don't think that people are doing it that much on I don't think I'm going to see another AAA shoot 'em up anytime soon.
I think it's because when they try, they typically, I don't want to say fail, but don't make a lot of money.
Well, you know what?
I don't want to say shoot 'em up, but like as far as a rail shooter, like a Crimson Skies, like a Panzer Dragoon, you know, Nintendo put a lot of money into Kid Icarus Uprising, and that was a fantastic fucking game.
Yeah,
did not sell that well.
Also, a lot of rail shooters and shoot 'em ups, they have the same problem as Match 3 games, is that a lot of the ones that are out there are on mobile platforms and are free to play.
Okay, yeah, I mean, and I guess I don't play enough mobile games.
I play what many would consider to be too many.
Yeah.
Which is sad because like I consider those to be some of the more satisfying types of video games out there. But I don't know. I think that when I think about this sort of thing, it's always going to go back to everything that's been called a GTA clone or a Souls-like, which is a term that I'm not so sure I'm into.
Souls-like?
Yeah, like honestly, I'm not really into that.
Might I ask why?
Well,
how do you feel about Metroidvanias? How do you feel about roguelike? Okay.
Actually, I'm like.
So you just don't want something that's named after a game?
I guess that's what it is.
Yeah.
Because I find often that to look at them, if you look at those things critically, they don't bear that much resemblance to their namesake. And but then like at the same time, like I'm not gonna go out there and try to popularize a new term, but
yeah,
I
just think like.
But I think that when you
it's useful because you can immediately know what somebody means when they say that.
Yeah, but when we talk about a Souls-like though, because like I don't think that when people say roguelike, I don't think that many people are comparing the game that you're talking about to Rogue.
No, but they're talking about the mechanics which were born from Rogue.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, they're like, what I'm saying though is that a lot of times when you say Souls-like, people are immediately going to compare it to Dark Souls in the way of, well, Dark Souls did it better, so
I think that's only because it's a new term.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously not new,
sure.
but like it's nowhere near as old as the term Metroidvania or roguelike.
Yeah, and I don't know enough about Metroid or Castlevania to really have an opinion on that.
Yeah.
In my with my very rudimentary understanding, the Metroidvania sounds more like it's talking about Metroid than Castlevania for the most part.
I mean, the term was born from Super Metroid and Symphony of the Night.
Yeah.
But if you want to be fair, I think they could just call them Metroid likes. They could leave the Castlevania out of there and people would have an understanding of it, because not all Metroidvanias, in fact, very few Metroidvanias have those RPG mechanics to them.
Yeah. Which is like also like sometimes it's a misnomer too.
Yeah.
Like even on the part of like the developer, like Motion Twin calls Dead Cells a Metroidvania.
Yeah.
And I really don't think it is.
I mean, I haven't played it, so I can't speak to it, but yeah, I mean, those terms don't bother me so much. I think that they are a bit better than some old gameplay terminology that we used to use. I think they're better than fighting game.
Yeah.
Because fighting game can mean any number of different kinds of games.
Man.
Right. Like a UFC game is a fighting game, right? Like
boxing game.
Shooter. Before we came up with the term first-person shooter or third-person shooter or vertical scrolling shooter, we just said shooter.
Yeah.
And that could have meant all sorts of different things, you know?
And I think like all language, it's just contextual, and I think you're talking to the right person and they know what you're talking about.
Right.
But yeah, you kind of put me on the spot, and I don't really know that I know that many games that have suffered from that. Like, well, I'm sure I do.
I mean, you've named some already,
But like, it just the shitty thing about it is that like I've said it so many times, and I feel and in some ways I feel like I'm being an apologist or I'm pandering, but I also feel like it's very true. Making video games is fucking hard, and
Sure.
it just sucks because like you work on this video game for however long, maybe you work on it for months, maybe you work on it for years, and then just nobody pays attention to it.
Yeah, and I think it's sad with a lot of these games in particular because a lot of them are really good games.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like they made a shitty product and then everyone didn't buy it.
And it's always kind of heartbreaking to me to see like people who go out and like try something new.
Yeah.
And then it just nobody plays it.
And I do think a big part of it is the time we live in where every day there's a fuck ton of games coming out.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about it before, right? NES had between 700 and 800 games.
It's a lot of games.
For its entire lifespan, which was a longer lifespan than most consoles have today. Yeah. And Switch had more than that in the first year.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of games coming out.
Just fucking open the gates on that.
It's easier to be buried, you know? Yeah.
And like, cause I sometimes I go in the eShop and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, how do you find anything in here?
You don't.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
you don't.
Like you have to go in there and know what you're looking for, because like, say that's the thing about the eShop is like, and I think the PSN store is guilty of this as well.
Oh yeah, every digital storefront is guilty
like,
of
you
this.
look at like, if you don't know what you're looking for, then you're just browsing forever, looking at nothing, and it sucks because like
I haven't been on Epic in a while, so I don't know.
I don't think it's gonna get there. I'm not saying it won't get there. Right now, their storefront is so limited that it's easy to like browse it in like one sitting and be done.
But myself and I think a lot of our listeners can remember a time when Humble did not have a lot of games on there, and now it's just as ridiculous as these other places. You know,
because they got that they got that IGN money.
Well, technically not, but yeah.
Well, it's for the shorties, but like, yeah, and Humble. That's another thing too. Is that like you'll see like they try to like they try to like do little curated lists and like categorize it in a different way, but you go in there and it's just as bad.
Right.
And
but it didn't used to be, you know.
And it just sucks because like again, you have people who and
I don't ever want to say that there's too many video games out there.
Yeah, make more video games, but like at the same
time.
But
it is a problem when you can't find something. When you can't discover something great, when the cream doesn't rise, you know.
Yeah, and because people and again, it's just like you want to make like it's hard, like even if you make a game that sets itself apart and has its own identity and like it's just doing so many things right.
Yeah.
But nobody will ever find it. Like in that way, you get the short in the stick because like there are so many games and we have so much choice and there's so many like say you release your game at like $10, but there are so many other games that like look just similarly enough to your game that are also $10.
Right. That
you just get lost in the shuffle, and then every once in a while like one of us comes across like a remarkable game just purely by chance,
right? Because
we just happen to see it, and like there's no algorithm that's that great that could point us to that stuff. Like I've come to the understanding that there are two services who don't know me at all: Netflix and Steam. They do not know me at all, and because they will show you like a bunch of stuff that you're not even into, right? And then in the middle of that, it's because you liked this, yeah. That you must like that, yeah. In the middle of that, they will show you something that you might actually like, but by the I appreciate the effort. Yeah, you know. What I think it's also it could be better. I think that there's such a thing as working hard in the wrong direction. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of that there. But you know what I really like that I do wish more storefronts would do is that Sony on PSN they have this thing called Editor's Choice, right? And I don't know how, I'm not exactly sure how these games are determined, but it's these people in the industry, and they're like, hey, this game's really good. Yeah. Like, do more of that, you know? I found out that me and Shuhei Yoshida have the same taste in video games. Sure. So that's pretty cool to know about me. So we skipped it a few weeks. I want to get back to all the small things, Ryan. Cool. You got any small things for this week? Yeah, it's a SpiderMan small thing. Tell me about it. I was walking down the street of SpiderMan, as one does in Insomniac SpiderMan. Sure. And someone came up to me, and they were like, hey, Spider-Man. Button prompt came up, and I gave him a high five, and that felt real cool. That is cool. Yeah.
There's a decent amount of little interactions with the citizens of New York.
And that's what I've always liked about Spider-Man is just because he's like, we talked about this when we were watching Spider-Man Homecoming.
He's the people's hero.
He's just like a regular dude who has like regular, like, I was like, never mind, I won't even get into it. Like, that was a little small thing. I like that.
I like it. I want to talk about Game Boy Tetris.
Mm-hmm. The perfect Tetris.
The perfect Tetris. My favorite small thing in Game Boy Tetris, which is actually quite a big thing if you really think about it, is that the well is shorter than, like, I believe any other version of Tetris.
Okay. What part is the well again?
You know, where your pieces are dropping down. It's shorter.
Down well.
So what this means is that pieces hit the bottom faster.
Yeah.
And it just makes the game much harder and much more frantic.
And you like that?
I like that.
Yeah. What do you
you know how easy it would be for every Tetris to come out, like everyone that's on consoles, if there was a mode that's like, hey, we're going to take out 4 rows and make it shorter.
Why don't they just do a Tetris that's like, which Tetris do you want to play?
No, just do it as an option. Oh. Let's make the well shorter. There's a mode where the well is shorter. Yeah. You know, and that might exist. There's a lot of versions of Tetris out there.
There are a lot of versions of Tetris out there.
But
20 of them exist on mobile platforms.
But yeah. Shout out to Tetris on Game Boy.
That sounds like a really actually pretty big thing, Tom. That sounds like a fundamental.
Well, it's small because it's on a Game Boy, you see.
Game Boys are small. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
And I've missed this.
What have you missed?
Just me and you just shooting the shit.
Well, I got good news for you, Ryan.
What's that?
Since we've been recording the show, Shanae has let us know that she will not be coming. So the next episode will be just the two of us as well. She'll never hear
me say that I thought that was cool.
Yeah, no, she'll never hear it.
She'll never know. Look, I love Shanae very much. I went to her wedding. That's how you know I love you.
The day of my daughter's wedding.
I will not go to your wedding if I do not love you. But, it's
Ryan, look, if you're listening to the show and you're going to get married, get on our Discord, get into contact with Ryan, and he will be there.
I have to really care about you.
He will be there.
Do you know how much bitching and moaning I did about Shanae's wedding?
You don't have to pay his airfare or his accommodations. Sure. He's got that.
Actually, wait, what? Like how much bitching and moaning I did about Shanae's wedding? How much bitching and moaning I did about Brittany's wedding? Nah.
Sure.
No, I'm not doing it again. I'm doing my wedding and that's it.
What if I get married?
Please get married in the city limits. I'm doing that for you. You do it for me. Okay? I did that for you. And me, because I don't want to.
Anyways, that's it for this week, guys. Check us out on Discord. We got a lot of nice people in there.
Yeah.
Check out our Instagram.
Discord's actually growing a little bit. Instagram's blowing the fuck up. Tom is posting a lot of cool shit on Instagram. If you like video games, check out the Instagram.
Yeah. And we will see you next week.
Later.